order the Shakopee School Board meeting of March 14th. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Allen. Here. McKeon.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Romansky. Here. Swanson.
Good evening.
Tucker. Here. And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. So we've got some very good news items to share. In fact, we got 4 of them. I'm going to start with one that just happened for those who were not present. About half the room, I think, was present. But for anyone who's watching at home, where we were at and why we're starting a little bit late tonight is in an exciting turn of events, I guess you could say, and the culmination of a lot of hard work by a lot of folks. We just came from a groundbreaking ceremony at Vaughn Field, where the school board, our consultants, we had representation from the city, a lot of good people there as a ceremonial groundbreaking of the refurbishments and the upgrades we're doing to Vaughn Field. So that was very exciting, and I think it's just the first of some great things to come to our outdoor facilities, and kind of heralds all the changes that are going to come as a result of the city support as well. So we're very grateful for that. So that's one. One thing I was asked to remind folks is put on your calendars February, that'd be Friday, September 9th, it's an F, Friday, September 9th, because that's homecoming this year. Homecoming, is that early?
The 9th is not homecoming, that's our opening game.
It's our opening, right? It's our opening night, first home game in the renovated stadium.
Right.
There we go. So it's going to be a very, very exciting night. So September 9th, put that in your calendar. All right, second item. I feel like this is a perennial winner, but it's something to be highlighted each year, and that's a finance award. And credit goes to Mike Berlager and his team, who have received a school finance award from the Minnesota Department of Education again. Is this fourth time? Thought so. The MDE gives us out to recognize schools who meet all these different deadlines and quality information submission of fiscal data, etc. So kudos to Mike and his team for doing that. You know, maybe you assume, well, you just got to do that. It's a lot of work, and to do it right and to do it year after year after year is an accomplishment. We appreciate that, Mike, so thank you. Third piece is we have a CAPS program. Everyone, I think, is familiar with that. But we also, folks may not know that we have some results, and kids have been spending time at both St. Francis Medical Center and Shutterfly first semester on site in more of an instructional mode, and now several of these students are out in internships in their respective companies. They've made a video about that, and I think we're going to share that video with everybody. So Sarah, if you want to run that?
Shoot the airplane.
Technical difficulty with the sound, but A couple takeaways that certainly jumped out at me was the sheer number of students and the variety and diversity of the students that are in this program. And if you read, like I did, along there, it was made me more confident, helped me confirm what I want to do. I'm really excited about this particular field. That's what CAPS is all about. That's what got all us excited about it. So clearly it's just come through the kids, so that's very exciting. So perhaps in the future we'll figure out how to hear them say that, but thank you, Sarah, for that.
We actually are gonna be able to hear them say that in a few moments, Reggie, because 3 of them are here.
Is that a plan? That is good. I'm just a straight man, that's all I am. All right, the fourth item for good news we have tonight is another annual event we do, nothing we take for granted, and that is to recognize the incredible volume of people who contribute hours and time and effort and energy to our school district, the volunteers I'm talking about. And it's time for us, as we do, I believe this time each year, in anticipation of a volunteer week, proclaiming it a volunteer week in Shakopee Public Schools, that we have a resolution. I'm not going to take the time to read it, it's quite lengthy, but it's recognizing all the volunteers who are essential to our classrooms, the activities, the programs, the kinds of things they bring are energy, compassion, integrity. More than 1,800 volunteers, it says that. They volunteer in classrooms, on athletic fields, behind the scenes. They help with the quality of our education. They bring the community together, they're involved. So therefore be it resolved that the Shakopee Board, the school board, the Shakopee School District 720 hereby extends its sincere appreciation to all district volunteers for their amazing dedication and service, and be it further resolved that the Shakopee School Board hereby proclaims April 17 to 23, 2016 as Volunteer Week in Shakopee Public Schools to honor the significant and positive impact volunteers have on education. So thank you very much to all of those people who day in, day out make contributions like this that make our schools the productive and successful places they are for our kids. All those board members have signed that, and we will get this probably to Paulette, and she'll be able to post that and share that with the volunteers. So thank you very much to all of them.
Reggie, if I could ask for a quick motion and second on that. please.
Yes, you sure can. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Thank you, Mary. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor of the resolution in appreciation that is honoring our school district volunteers, denoting the volunteer week in Shakopee Public Schools in April, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, let's move along with our agenda. Do we have any visitors who would care to be recognized for speaking tonight? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to consider the agenda as presented. Or let me first ask, Roger, do we have any?
There are no changes I'm aware of.
Okay.
Sarah?
Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Angela. Any discussion? All those in favor of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? We have our agenda. We'll move on to consent. Any changes or modifications to consent? All right, I'll take a motion to accept consent as presented. Thank you, Scott. And
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Matt. Mary? One of the M's. All right. All those in favor of accepting consent as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have consent. I think we're gonna go in order, at least at this
Yeah,
point.
the students are.
All right, so we've got another fun activity. This is what Rob's alluding to. We've got some students with us here tonight, and I think they're gonna present to us some of their ideas relative to logos and things for the academy.
I'm Jade.
Hi, Jade.
What grade are you? Oh, sorry. I'm a senior at Shakopee High School.
I'm Ginny, senior also.
I'm Casey and I'm also senior.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So we are going to present some of the logos that the students, they are part of the digital design team over at Shutterfly through the CAPS program, and they've been working on some academy logos for us. So we are going to pop those up really quick. Maybe.
Brian, do you mind coming up and helping?
While you're doing that, I'm gonna ask you three a question. Are these, what we're about to see, Is it representative of just your three work, or is it a larger group perhaps that it represents?
It's a
Yeah,
whole
it's just
class that
section.
we've been
They
working
keep
on as well with Denise and the other group. We've been into the other meeting. And right now we are working on getting student feedback and all the staff at school.
Great. So you got the honor of coming tonight to explain them all.
Who have you had the opportunity to talk to anyone else? I know I talked to you all, how long ago now, and I pitched just the general concept, and I've been seeing a lot of work, but have you had a chance to meet our communications team yet? What have you been doing?
Well, we discussed some logo concepts, like we're going to do today. It's,
Yeah, we have a meeting with the communication team and Denise sending all the file to the architect team and yeah, those are the only two teams that we've been working with and then still waiting on the kind of final so the student kind of can see like the overall like semi-final logo.
Perfect, so just to tee it up a little bit, so we had the idea that it would be really fun to get our students involved with creating the logos for the Academies of Shakopee and seeing what they could create, because our communications team quickly realized none of us are really designers in that, like we can think of something, but creating it is a whole other story. So what we did is we thought with the idea of, let's get the students involved, let's see what they can do. So how we got started was the idea of the new building, new branding, great opportunity just for students to leave their legacy behind. We reached out to Rachel Paulson. She is the teacher over at Shutterfly, and she works with all the digital design students. And then we had an initial meeting with the entire group, which is what, like 15, 20 of you guys? About 15 to 20 students, just pitching the idea of like, this is what we want to do. We're giving you a little bit of creative freedom. You could see the excitement on their faces because some of them were already thinking. So that's how we got started with it. What we asked for, we wanted a logo for each academy, including the freshman academy. We wanted an overarching Academies of Shakopee logo. And then we wanted something unique, something different, and something Shakopee, that it wasn't being used by any of the other schools that have the academy model. And then once again, why we wanted it was just for students to feel invested in the new building and for them to realize that we are invested in what they want and what their needs are, and then just creating that identity inside the big school and then looking for a sense of pride to go along with it. So the designs that they've come up with thus far are about two options, and I'm going to let them talk about it and just what their thought process was, their design process, and then have them just go through it. So who wants to start? Ginny, you could start since the first one is yours.
Okay. Oh, no, that was not yours.
Oh, is it yours, Jade? Sorry, my bad.
I should just make sure the board's aware too, we're not looking for decisions
No.
tonight. These
Sure.
are just concepts, they're pitching some concepts, and then they'll come back with your feedback, right? Okay.
yeah, so we basically branch out into two different versions of the design. There's a more abstract design and a more literal design. And there are like perks with either one. The literal design would be easier for people to understand right away because, you have the object and it correlates with that area of study right away. But then the other one, it's more generalized, so you kind of avoid any conflict with people being afraid that it won't represent them.
Can we go back? When I first saw the modern design, I was a little bit confused, and then you explained it, and it was pretty incredible. Will you go through and explain the significance of each of those?
Okay, so human services is basically, it is a human, and it looks kind of like an H. That area has to do all about with like human interaction. Business and entrepreneurship, you can kind of see a B, and it has to do with like charts and graphs, rates, the arrows pointing up, so trends. Engineering and manufacturing, you can see the E, and there's a gear on the bottom part. Health science sciences, you can see the heart rate monitor and the H. Science and technology, you can see the S, and that one has to do with like understanding of the earth, so it's more of an earthy kind of theme. Arts and communication has to do with your perspective on things, kind of a deeper meaning.
Like an I, but also an A.
Yeah, you can see the A if you look sideways.
I sure like the uniqueness of two real different pitches here. That's gives us all kinds of things to think about.
Anyone want to explain the traditional ones?
Basically the traditional is kind of hard really for us. I've been making a lot of like changes because some of them is like they say there's a lot of conflict that like it doesn't represent the whole as a all. So it's still represented, but it's still like kind of broad, but it's not like one specific thing in that one major. So some of them have kind of like a hidden letter. So if you look on the space on the first one, there's an H and S representing human and service in the middle. And then for business and entrepreneur, it's not necessarily like B and E, but with that two circle, you could kind of find it. And then for engineering and manufacturing, it's kind of like a circuit board where you could see an E and an M. Health and science also is kind of S around and then H. Science and technology, you could see an S and T. That's kind of like molecule-ish, but not too much to like the science side, but also technology. And then art and communication is the feather with the T and A on the top.
So then to give each academy even more of an identity, they added colors. And the colors are still a work in progress, so. But they added colors to each of them as well. And they humored us by showing us each style as well as lettering and where it could go. Because from a communications and PR standpoint, we could use it for all different areas. So it could be a letterhead, it could be embroidered on a shirt, it could be so many different things. So we challenged them to also think about that. So you can see each of the different styles. And they went with more jewel colors, just to try to stay away from the primary, because that's very bright and a little harder to work with.
I think you said it before, but you're also working with Scott McQueen and
Yes.
his team to make sure whatever colors come out of this actually works from an architectural standpoint too, right?
If we try to see if the architect or like the interior design have a specific color code on the specific building on that area, then we can just match with whatever color they use for the building.
And we're still tweaking a few things in there, color being one of them, because we did get feedback from Wold and what they thought could work better. For example, the yellow is hard to work with, so
Yeah.
trying to make it a little bit more gold.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Academy of Shakti overall logo, who wants to chat about that?
Okay, so basically we just take the hexagon and there's 6 academy and then we kind of combine it almost like a flower almost.
So the hexagon is the same shape that you see for each of the academies.
There's an animation that you could show the
Oh, yeah.
together.
Chinny, you did this?
Yep.
So Chinny,
Just something quick to like visualize. So you can see it's just a bunch of hexagon together. So hexagon works really well if like you want to add more academy, then you can just add a bunch of them more. It's just really easy to work with.
did I pop up again? No, I'm sorry. It's a cute family, so it's
It
okay.
is.
So then they incorporated the colors as well. So for each of the academies, so we can use it in different ways. So we could have the red if we wanted to stay a little bit more neutral and represent Shakopee a little bit more, but in different instances also use the colors of each of the academies if they want to individualize it a little bit. And then beginning to picture it, who created all of these pieces? Ginny, you did? You want to explain it? Ginny went above and beyond what we asked, which got us really excited in the communications department. So business cards.
I just like the simplicity. Really, the logo could be standalone without the hexagon or anything at all. And it's be cool to have like all the teachers have their own business card within the color of their area of study.
There's more of the overarching, so if we want a unified business card forever out and about, it's nice for all teachers, staff, anyone to have similar business cards, obviously, but this is a nice way to see it. We all geeked out over this, the letterhead. And the different ways that we can use it. So then the plan, moving forward, this is kind of small, so I apologize, but the plan that the students and I have created is, their next step is that they're going to go to the students that will be affected by the academy, so the younger middle school age students, and get their feedback as well as high school students. So they are working on surveys that they are gonna go and distribute and just get initial reaction to each of those. Then the idea is to start kind of finalizing a design based on that feedback. Do people like the modern? Do they like the traditional? Getting approval from cabinet, so they're gonna present to cabinet. They're gonna be back here and do an official presentation to all of you. We will get designer Dan, who is our in-house, well not in-house, but he works with our district to do any last minute touches, get exactly the right color, everything right on point. And then we hope to celebrate and have a large unveiling at some point if it gets approved soon, and celebrate the students and all of their hard work. Because we've been working on this since last semester. And we've been going in multiple Wednesdays, just feedback. I'm very familiar with Base Camp now. They text me, it's fine. So, yeah. Any questions for the students?
Was one of the assignments to do the freshman academy? Does it have a?
Yes, we
Oh,
started
yes.
on that.
The freshman academy's been the hardest one, Reggie.
That's why I asked. Okay.
Yes. Let's see. So these are prototypes. Nothing's official has been done yet, but these are some ideas. Do you want to kind of tell them what you guys have been working on and what the struggle's been a little bit?
Because when we saw other academy, they also have a compass. We kind of want to stay away from like copycat, you know. And then the bottom one is kind of represent like a stair, like different direction and arrow, where the freshmen come in and they have they could decide where they want to go next and what are their next step. So yeah.
And like the individual academy logos for the letters incorporated into the design, we tried to include the F. So you can see that on the bottom.
So like in the real world, if it goes to the communications committee, it goes to the students, or it goes to the board, and they're like, I don't know, might want to tweak this, or I'm not quite there. What would the steps look like, or what would the process look like if you pitch the client and the client says, we're not quite there yet?
Then you basically just go back, scratch out the idea, and then go through all those people again, and then do it over and over again until the client happy with it.
So we want to get that done before you all graduate, is that the case?
Seems like this is a portfolio.
I do have a question. I don't know if you want any feedback right now, but on the traditional logos, I understood the concept behind most of them, and maybe I'm missing it, maybe it's super obvious, but what is the feather with arts and communication? How does a feather,
Quill, writing quill.
writing quill?
That's the most struggle one. It's kind of like with music, you use that to write,
see if it works,
Yeah,
so.
that would have helped me, but now I see it.
I think though, cause I've met with them too a few times on her Wednesday, I think there's pros and cons to each side. I think one of the hard things with the literal is it maybe speaks to people, they get how it connects to the academy better, but then for our staff, they would see it's writing, but yet it's arts and communication, so it's performing arts, it's music, it's digital design, it's,
Right.
you know, so it's hard, they might look at that and say, that represents maybe one of our programs within that academy, but not all, you know, and that might be the
Whereas the modern
cause,
is more.
yeah, the modern, but then you have the other side, which is, what is that, you know, which is it too abstract? So that's some of the conversations we've had within that team.
I would think that would be a very difficult part about if this, well, actually it is, if you're authentically bringing this to a board. When Nancy was speaking, like the top row there, the modern version, I absolutely love that. And I grew to love it even more as you were explaining what it is. I think the struggle that I have is that it's being able to explain to traditionalists that that's actually what it is. You know what I'm saying? That unless you get to tell the story, it may not be enough. But I love it. The more traditional, in my opinion, is just that. And are we hoping to be something more creative, or are we trying to give kind of since the academies are kind of creative and innovative anyway, do we need something a little bit more traditional when it comes to branding and so forth? Outside of my pay grade, I don't know all those answers, but I love the contrast, and I love the story even more of how you guys explained what this is all about. It helps, and I would hope that when you put the presentation and the storyboard together, that there is a narrative with that that explains some of both of your feelings and where it's from. So when it goes to the students, it wouldn't be a fair survey unless your voice was in that. That's my 2 cents.
Having spent many years in marketing and having ad agencies pitch to me, this is really good work, guys. But what Rod said is very, very true, which is, I looked at that first row and went, what? I didn't get it. And then, as you explained it, it all became it's just like the clouds parted and it made sense. But I think people might need that in order to really like it and adopt it. So make sure that that's part of your thought process and communication around it. And it may cause you to tweak a few things. It's just like, we can't really get there, we can't explain this very well. But the contrast is phenomenal, the ideas are phenomenal. Love the execution, love the merchandising, if you will. Great job with that. Really like it. I also really like the Academy logo and how you incorporated the individual into it. The hexagon, great idea, love it.
How about from our board members? Now, they want to go away and come back with an even better product. So what feedback would you give them, if any?
One thing,
I'll go ahead and do you go.
one thing I saw one of the 6 colors being red, and I almost wonder if one of them should be red. If we're going to have like red red is chocolate.
It wasn't red though,
think
was
it's
it?
orange.
It
Was
wasn't
it
red,
dark
orange, it
orange?
was
I thought
orange.
when they broke that thing down,
Yeah, it was like a dark orange.
Yeah,
It
the
wasn't red.
monitor.
This one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's.
Actually,
orange.
when it kind of when it broke down, we had that.
I love that color.
There was one,
I think
Denise, that
that's-
you showed and you said it could be red or whatever. Was that?
That's the whole Academy
That's
logo.
this one. This one is red.
No, but if you go back to the build, it looks red.
Where you just had where it's clicking around. That's that one that broke down. That one.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's a burnt orange.
Okay.
It just looks a little redder on
On
it.
the monitor.
That's fine, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't want one.
Red.
Yep.
Yeah.
My personal feedback is for the academies, all of them together, I would lean toward red because I like the idea of all of it coming together to be one Shakopee. But I'm not sure that everybody would agree with me there.
I don't think we have to be married to one of them. If you've got the unique colors, I don't think there's any reason why you can't have both. 2 different executions of it.
That's a good point.
I have
freshman academy is kind of killing us, yeah, we're just trying to figure out how to.
It's the hexagon outside of the six.
Oh, there we go.
There's 7 hexagons on there.
Yeah.
6 small and 1 big.
On the
Oh.
bottom.
Nice, probably.
Mission
I got you covered.
Actually, that's a really good perceptive catch. I did not catch that, and that would do it.
Well, if you look at it the other way, you could say.
We're adjourned.
We could say the 6 academies are inside the freshman academy, the way people look at that.
I just don't want them to be excluded out of it.
No, you're right.
So.
The individual academy logos, can you go back to that page?
This one?
I told you this in the communications meeting, the creativity and what I actually consider brilliance of the first line really is impressive. I would only struggle with if we're handing this out on a business card to our corporate partners, and we don't, like you said, we don't get the chance to tell the story of what it is, that's an obstacle for me. The business and entrepreneurship one in the traditional, I'm assuming that's like a voice bubble, meaning communication,
Yes.
and then an earth, is it like, is that an earth like global? And then that on engineering and manufacturing. Well, I see the E, but the circle part of it confuses me. Because aren't circuit boards more square?
So E is like right there, and then M is like right there.
Are you just talking about the symbol in
I'm
general?
talking about the roundness of the
Oh.
symbol, like
Yeah, it was more like solder points on a circuit board, like the circles.
totally.
Really shine that down.
Sorry.
That's the one thing that made us determine as a circuit board. Otherwise, we just cut off the circles and it'd be a line. But hopefully more people see it.
Mary, did you have a comment?
Yeah, what happened if they have more than 6 academies? What would happen to the academy logo?
You could definitely add more with that.
How can you add more?
Do you wanna pull it up, Denise?
Yes.
Maybe one of them could show what they're thinking there.
Squeeze another one,
Yeah, just basically just.
Like make them smaller, you think?
or just add a 7th one, and so it wouldn't be as like clean,
Yeah,
but you'd still be able to just kind of put
You
the
can insert
corner in
one.
there.
I do think though, there's a difference between our career academies and our freshman academy. Those are 2 different types of academies. The freshman academy is gonna be almost in some ways, families and teams like you see at what I would hope we would see at the middle level. And it's a kind of a transition between those 2. Whereas the other 6 are actually very much career academies. Think about our freshmen will really take their core electives or their core classes in the freshman academy and then go out to the other academies to do their electives. And then eventually make their choice of their career academy. So it's kind of a, to me, I would debate that concept of whether the freshman academy needs to be in that overall logo.
Nancy, that's not what she's asking. I think the direction might be for you guys when you go back. And how could a 7th or an 8th, how could you visually represent that? How would it fit? And I'm sure there's ways to do it, but is that,
Yeah.
it's kind of,
So for example, we asked the architects, if we outgrow 3,200, could we get another tower with 2 academies in it? And the answer is yes, and he's actually drawing that just in case. So to Mary's point, if we do end up with 2 more academies, how would you make, so I would maybe even say, show us a 7 option and show us an 8 option. And that just becomes kind of the extra package that goes with, much like Scott and his team has to do.
traffic's always done.
Yeah.
You got it right.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Mary, yes.
I also wanted to add the academies. If you go with the traditional or the modern, you don't need, it's new, so everybody will know if it's modern or traditional, everybody will know the academies.
That's a good point, Mary.
And we've had that discussion multiple times actually, because someone brought up in the group, like, you look at a bullseye and everyone thinks Target. Well, that didn't happen overnight. I mean, that's marketing in itself. So it's trying to get that idea with selling those, but totally agree that there's a story there, so.
Other comments from?
For the modern science and technology that has the feathers on it, did that used to be something else?
It was.
And I liked it?
Better than
Yeah, really.
this.
That was subtle.
The one before that actually looked like the Price is Right logo, which is why we scrapped it.
See, that's why you liked it.
But I thought it had more like, there was something on it that signified something. What was that?
It was like a signal tower with
Yeah. And so, and what do the feathers represent?
They're actually leaves, and it represents like the world, kind of like Earth.
All right, Tony or my three compadres over here?
I'll just say that I like the artistic, you know, just the feel of the modern offering. My only concern is, again, does it translate the way it needs to? I would almost wish you had something that was in the middle of the two of them, something that wasn't quite as artistic, I guess. You know, here's another thing. If I'm a fourth grader and I'm thinking about academies because eventually this will be built in, can I draw that as a fourth grader when I'm sitting at my desk and just making some scratch? You know, you want to make it easy enough and recognizable enough at all ages where when they're thinking about it, if they want to doodle, like I love Van Halen. I could make the Van Halen emblem very, very easily. It's a very simple emblem. I used to do that on every single notebook I ever had in school.
I think you got the gavel.
There you go.
It feels like therapy now.
So I'm just wondering, could a student, can somebody actually draw it if they wanted to?
That's a rock and roll group from the 80s.
With Diamond Dave, not the other so, anyhow, I want to be able to draw it. If I want to draw it, if I want to show, you know, a grandpa grammar or something, can I draw one of those upper modern symbols quick and easy enough where somebody would recognize it as opposed to something a little bit more, not obvious or straightforward, but a little more straightforward than abstract.
Matt, Angela?
I just want to say thanks for doing this for us. I love the academy portion of it. Not married on this yet. I think of the first row as more of a tattoo. First thing that pops in my mind. So if somebody loves their academy, this is a great.
That's how they start.
So I don't get all set now.
You just got a lot of parents unhappy with that guy.
That's when you want to change.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't have any, so. Anyways, but I really love the whole arching, the red academy, and then I like how you guys put them in the cube. So, but thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. I can't help but maybe I don't know too much of an interior design or whatever. The health sciences traditional one looks like a spiral staircase to me, not DNA, which I think it's intended to do. But I still like it. It still speaks to me, and I like them all.
It does look like a spiral, but no, you can't say that to anyone else ever, because then it gets in their brain.
You know, it's like the Cisco logo. That's what I thought of.
Tony? No. Do you feel like you've got some feedback to work with? To equip you to make some adjustments or some other ideas? I'm gonna add my final comment to be very specific. I really, at first pass, because I'm a traditional kind of guy, I went right to the bottom. Cause the other, I didn't think about that, I thought of ancient Egyptian or something. But when you explained it, I really liked it. Of all those, I can really get behind it, except for business and entrepreneurship and science and technology. I'm struggling with those. as to what they really mean. And we do want them to communicate something. So for what it's worth, just my feedback, the B&E, I think needs a little work to be clear. I get the B, I get the arrow, but kind of struggling with it. And the science and technology, when you explain it, I get it, but I saw a chicken. I saw a bird.
I did too.
Yep.
So,
Well, that's.
I do love health sciences, engineering and manufacturing, human services and arts and communication, those four,
Yep.
are spot on.
they really are, they're great.
Mhm.
All right, thank you very much, you guys. Appreciate all your hard
Thank
work
you.
and thank you for coming. Great job. All right, we're just gonna keep going in order. So Brian, I think you're gonna come up. Instructional technology update.
What do we have on there first, the rollout?
It's the instructional tech update, and it is the deployment.
Deployment stuff? Okay.
Yeah, this is front back page.
I guess, did you need me to walk through that, or?
Well, maybe put a little bit of time into seeing if there's questions.
Okay.
What we asked Brian to do as a cabinet and personally is, we've got the implementation phases coming out for the high school, which is a major deal. And then we've got some other work throughout the district. And I said, it'd sure be good to have a communication plan that would speak to parents, as they're thinking about, do I have to buy technology? What's this gonna look like? So maybe more than anything is, I'll throw it out to the board members. Are there questions that you have, suggestions for improvement? This basically turns into Brian working with communications and getting that out, so people just know what to expect, when to expect it. His team is going above and beyond for some customer service pieces in the summer, as you can see here, and so just want to make sure you all know what's going on, should community ask you. I mean, we have the asset coming forward too of the tech levy, so it's asking you if you have questions, and Brian's here to answer.
Basically, we took a lot of the feedback we got from the last rollout, and obviously that's expanding. We twice the size this coming fall in terms of how many devices we're rolling out, so obviously we wanted to make it as painless as possible for people. So we took a lot of that feedback from the parents, from the staff, to work out any kinks and also try to speed up the process. You'll see that we are trying to target getting all the devices in the students' hands by the end of the first week of school. A lot of them prior to that, so that's, obviously a priority to get things rolling as quickly as possible.
And again, this is an update, there's no board action required, just looking for any feedback you might have for Brian and his team.
I view this, Brian, kind of as almost a work plan. This is the schedule, this is how we're gonna roll it out. We would communicate this to folks so they knew what to expect in the timeline. Okay.
Yep, we'll have some initial communications out, a little bit after spring break we're looking at.
Okay.
Question, Brian.
Yeah.
So this year's 8th graders that'll get their 9th grade laptops, what is the plan for, that'll be the first time we've actually redistributed iPads from 8th graders back into the pool? What does that look like?
In terms of what devices will be redistributed, those 8th grade devices will primarily become the 2nd grade carts. That's how those will get reused, because those are only a year old. That'll be the majority of where that goes. And then we have a lot of staff that need updates or other places we can use. So nothing's gonna go to waste.
So nothing rolls back to, so those don't roll back to 6th grade.
Those do not roll back to 6th grade. The iPads generally we would have on a 3-year cycle.
Yeah. That way 6 gets it new, keeps it 7, 8. That makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
So if I'm an 8th grader, because my daughter's an 8th grader, is there any information that's on the cloud or whatever, or on her device that would get ultimately transferred and be available then on her laptop, or does that?
Whatever she has, a lot of what the students are doing is on Google Docs. So that's
just
not
like
really
goes
going
with
where
just
you have your account. Anything that would be, I don't think you'd have anything necessarily sensitive, but we'd be, for that kind of transition, we'd clean the stuff off those devices, and they would take the kit gets through an end of the year process to, wrap everything up and get off the device what they need, so that's just part of the end, the last week or two of school process.
Okay, cool.
So back to Scott's example, if she had video or projects that she wanted to save or photos that she wanted to save, we'd make sure that there's information there on, hey, make sure you go to your Google Drive to save or whatever that looks like.
And I think you'll generally find that's where they're putting it in the first place, but we would, check on it.
So you said 6, 7, 8, it's gonna cycle back to 9. I mean, if we're going every 2 years, you know, to 9, 10, 11, 12. So the whole-
iPads, iPads 6, 7, 8 grade, MacBooks 9 through 12.
I just had a quick question. So the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders get their devices the 18th and 19th primarily of August.
So there's a window of time, the 15th through the 19th. Basically, that whole week we will have.
No,
time
you have,
slots.
well, you have 18th and 19th on here. Did you need 15th?
Is that a old document?
I
Sarah?
think I must apologize for Brian. I think that I have a previous version posted.
Might have been one version before where we just tweaked a couple things, so
Yeah.
that what that should say is from August 15th to 19th, that whole
Okay.
week.
Yeah.
Just to accommodate the fact that you were looking at, you're looking at almost 2,100 kids,
Right.
give or take.
Right. I was wondering how that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That
how,
was my
that's how
question.
that's scheduling. goes.
Okay.
So when you give it the whole week in there.
Makes
yeah,
much
that'll
more
work.
sense. That's my fault.
All right. Thank you.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
How quickly, hello Brian, I didn't meet you previously, but, how quickly can things change if we decide to go with another, computer?
If we changed over from the Apple devices to something else?
Yeah.
I mean,
Can it be done?
could it be done? A lot of things could be done. I don't know that that'd be advisable at this point to change. We've already sort of invested and we've already have the 9th graders and a lot of the curriculum moving toward, utilizing that platform. So utilizing the Macs in a constructive way for the classroom. So I think at this point, the teachers are, have it in their heads that that's the way we're going, and so that would be pretty disruptive at this point to make that change. It's not to say that we wouldn't
When could that
make some.
change be made if we decide to go with Chromebooks, for example?
That's, again, that's not something we would do lightly, and if it ever came to pass that was a direction the district wanted to go, I think you'd want to take a little time to, figure out if that was gonna work for your curriculum, what you wanted to do. I think, people put a lot of time into looking at this platform, looking at the Macs, and really considering what it could do and what value it would have for the kids, and what it would mean also in terms of, the model we just talked about, like the CAPS kids are a good example of kids that are already on sort of the early batch of kids because they're doing the internships. And especially in the graphic design group, the Shutterfly group, really leveraging that device in ways that, every platform has its strengths and weaknesses, but for the model of high school we're looking at, this is we're probably in good shape with what we're doing.
Can we change over if we decided to?
In theory, but I don't know that I'd want to, like I said, that would be a pretty disruptive thing to the, to the staff and to the district, and probably,
So I suppose if money was no object, you'd be replacing, using Chromebooks as an example, you'd be replacing 4 years worth of equipment. You'd have to transition whatever programming is on that platform and make sure it's available comparably on the PC platform. So it'd be a lot of steps involved. It can be done, but it'd be pretty extensive and probably fairly expensive.
There'd be expense, there'd be, the other aspect of this is the investment we've made in terms of professional development. And we've really ramped up in terms of, what we've done with the staff to get lot of transition can be hard. It can be hard on people. So that would be a factor. You know, and the reality is, I guess, yes, are some devices cheaper than others? Absolutely. On the other hand, I think, and again, I wasn't in the midst of it, I came after it, but as I understand it, I think the district was pretty upfront about when they went to the community with the referendum about what they wanted to do and what that would cover, and, you know, this was part of it in terms of that money was put out there to make sure that the kids had the best tool available in their hands, and that's what we're trying to do. So that's, if it all dried up tomorrow, we might go a different route, but that's not where we're at.
The reason I ask is because your predecessor said we're going with leases because it makes it easier to change the platform if we decide to go another way. So are you for the leases or against them?
Am I for the?
Leases as opposed to purchasing
Leasing.
them outright. The leases, you're saying leases
Well,
gave us more flexibility, is what you would really?
I think, given the necessity of leasing at this point, economically, has basically a lot to do with just how quickly we are ramping up this program. That we're trying to, you know, we feel like we have an initiative where we need to then move quickly to put devices in kids' hands and really get up to speed and be consistent with our curriculum across the board and not leave anyone behind. And I think we're doing that as quickly as possible, which requires leasing just to manage that financial aspect. But at the same time, trying not to make the staff too crazy in the process by ramping up too fast. But again, we've put a lot of effort into preparing people, offering PD, doing classes, working with the curriculum, that kind of thing, and also working with teaching and learning to kind of measure out, okay, how quickly can we go? Where do we need to not go as quickly and just give people a chance to get caught up, and finding that balance.
All right.
All that plays into how the money works out, how the leasing works out.
Other questions? About the rollout or? Okay,
Good.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Good luck. A lot of devices to roll out.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're gonna ask our friends from Walden ICS to come forward and talk about the Vaughn Field project. Give us an update. Scott? Hey, what is on the back of that? Is that like a handle?
Brian, we need some handles over here. Private sector guys.
Just some quick updates on the Vaughn Field. This Thursday and Friday, the contractor's going to do some locates for the utilities. Thursday and Friday work. Monday is actually when they're going to mobilize and bring in a trailer, start the temporary fencing around so the site's contained and well secured. And then majority of the work's going to be excavation. I'm going to break it down into your upper level, which is going to be your concessions, your ticketed area, and then your lower area is going to be your field, obviously. So really quick, we'll start work next week with underground footings, CMU work, anything that's underground, excavation work, and then the following 2 weeks up to 5 weeks, we'll be beginning the CMU work,
Which is?
concrete masonry units for the concessions, ticket building, and so forth. So really not until June is when we're gonna actually start building those areas. So a lot of the work from March, April, and May will be on the utilities work, underground work. So that's in a nutshell is the upper level. July is when we're gonna start the concrete work for the pavement. So then I'll round up the upper area. Down in the field, subcutting next week. Majority of the work's gonna be preparing the field. We wanna get the field in by July 15th is our date, so we can get it ready and prepared. So that's the big thing, and then the storage building obviously is gonna, depending on what direction we go, if we're gonna build new or if we're gonna go with remodel the existing one. So a lot of work around the field, a lot of utility work, but it's straightforward.
So understanding of the field or the turf and the track is that they have to do a soil correction or a subcut down almost 50 inches, a little over 4 feet. So there's gonna be a lot of excavation of trucks coming, taking soil out and then importing new soil. So you'll see a lot of truck traffic coming in and out. So there'll be a lot of work happening in the lower part that you won't really see happening, but there's a lot of subsoil corrections that need to happen before you'll see the turf.
Why is that?
Good soil condition. The turf and the track take special type of, like a sand mixture, so granular porous material. So it's better drainage, it helps with the track surface so it doesn't crack. So it's not the best soil, so that's why that feel like that's something that.
Questions, Mary?
How long will everything last?
We're looking for completion, what's your completion?
August 15th was the actual completion date.
Durability of the.
Oh, the durability? Standard, the industry standard for track is typically, you have two track surfaces. You have the pavement or the bituminous track surface, and then you have a rubberized track surface on top of that. The rubberized track surface usually lasts anywhere from 7 to 10 years. The bituminous underneath that would last, I would say, probably 14 years to 20 years. So typically you'd see track surfaces being, refinished and resurfaced every 7 to 10 years. Your turf field, that depends upon usage, how much use it gets, but typically they say that's about a 10-year product.
Thank you.
Questions?
Did I? Maybe I missed something. So what's gonna happen with this spring sports?
So we spoke with John again today after the groundbreaking, and the track, people are gonna use it until Wednesday of this week, and then Thursday and Friday, it sounds like the weather's gonna be pretty poor anyway, so they're gonna be practicing inside. And then after that, I think we're gonna probably have to shut it down after that, coming the following Monday. So John's aware of that, he's been communicating that with the track coaches, and it sounds like everybody's on board.
They've made some alternative plans with, for some runways that they can, mobile runways that they can use. They're gonna dig out a hole and put sand in for a long jump pit. They're gonna, do the running on, in other areas, but they've got spots for the long jump and the shot put and all that they're gonna kind of build some temporary things that they can later use, after this is done, they can use that runway somewhere else, maybe in the field house, in the gym and all that, but they've been planning for this. We talked to them about, do you wanna go and use another track somewhere in another school, but it would've been, after other schools had practiced and all that, and they just thought that that'd be more of a detriment to the program. They thought the kids would rather be around and running, they could find spots to run around campus and make that an enjoyable process instead of waiting to have practice at 6 or 7 at night somewhere else. So.
And then lacrosse?
Lacrosse is just playing other, we've got other fields around,
Are there no home meets here
No.
this year? So we'll host other places, or we just won't?
I believe we're hosting in, I don't know, New Prague or? I don't know if we're gonna be the host of somewhere.
Kids told me that the typical hosting is going to be at another site. For our meet, so to speak.
And I'm assuming this spring gave us a little breathing room? Are they starting earlier than they had anticipated?
Yes and no. They're able to start some of the site demolition and some of the other work. The problem is that the state is still reviewing plans. So there's been a delay at the state with getting permits. So we're hoping that that's gonna track a little quicker than we expected to. We really weren't expecting that to be ready until mid-April, just because of the typical winter, but we are gonna get an early start and we're gonna be able to suppose we have any sort of video documentary capability where we can film from some high point, and are we doing that?
We're not gonna do a webcam, but what we're doing is a weekly communication with a video. So we've talked with Dr. Thompson already about that, it's just taking still pictures, but also video. And then basically speeding up all those videos for the 3 or 4 months of work in place, and kind of speeding that up and making one video release of the whole project when it's complete. So that's the direction we're looking at, unless you guys have other suggestions.
Oh, I just love seeing those, those are fun.
It's a good time-lapse video.
Mary? Oh, that was a question. All right, thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. Go forth and do. All right, Mr. Berlogger, you're up for a couple items. First one is talking about revisions to the 15-16 budget.
Okay, we've been talking about this since about the middle of January, so we had a couple learning sessions on it. In your packet, there was a sheet talking about what the revenues we were changing, and then again, what expenditures we were adding and subtracting. And I guess on the second page, we had the original budget plus the revised budget and how it will affect fund balance. The fund balance will affect
Mike, let me clarify. I printed the stuff that was in the board book. I don't think this page folks have seen. You gave that to me tonight, Sarah, but I think this is new to people. Does that look
It was
familiar
a
at all?
2-page board book, okay?
I have the cover page and then the two.
It was a group.
Yeah, that didn't come through in the board book. All the other individuals.
Because remember, we talked about the Thursday, right, didn't we?
Up and where I have the memo and then the two PDFs that came from Tyler.
Okay, because I thought this was the one I said.
I'm wondering if we can project this for the benefit of the group, or?
Do you have it?
I don't have it on.
Okay, well, then
I
you can talk to it. You can talk to it.
The basics on it is, we had originally, for the state-defined general fund, which is general fund plus transportation plus capital, we had originally, the effect on fund balance is gonna be $485,000 to the positive. And what we end up with the revisions is about a $22,000 effect on fund balance to the positive. So in the end, it will be going up, but not by as much as we thought. Again, the reasons we have the reduced revenue that we think we're gonna have, just the number of students that didn't show up and have moved out, although we're getting some moving in at the elementary, and just additional expenses. So
Mike, let me interject here.
Sure.
To kind of get the sense of the board. You guys haven't seen this summary. All the numbers are in the other documents. So I want to ask if you feel, Mike's looking for action tonight, and it's to approve these revisions. If you're not comfortable doing that without seeing this summary, then I'm going to propose we postpone this.
I can.
But if you're comfortable with what the verbal description, what he's talking about, what you read, then we might be able to take action. So I'm looking for the board to kind of say, you know what, I want to look at that, hold off, let's come back in 2 weeks. Or do you feel comfortable?
Can I recommend that we move on to the next line item, we're gonna make some copies of this? I don't think we need another.
That'd be fine.
Push.
So you can move to the next item.
Yep.
We'll table this for now.
Yep.
And Sarah, if you can get, you know the page I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay,
And
good
it looks
idea.
like it's in the courthouse.
Is that all right, Mike?
Yep. Can I, did you write on yours? I've written on mine.
No,
so-
I have not.
I think I just covered it.
Okay. So then, Michael Hoheisel will join me and we'll talk about the bond.
Yep.
Maybe before
If that's all
our
right.
two financial people speak, I think it's really important that what comes out of your mouths tonight sounds like English. And so it's going to be very important that for the board and for the community, this is a really important thing we're asking the school board to take action on because it directly impacts
our taxpayers in a positive way. And oftentimes as school boards or school districts, we kind of get to be a little bit, beat up on. And then there are actions that we can take that don't just happen. We have to seek out these actions and stay on top of, in front of the game and on top of things in order to do these things. And so in an effort to make sure that everybody understands, I want to encourage the board to help us tonight, make sure it's clear to the taxpayers what a positive thing you're all doing by taking action. Now, I'm not suggesting you don't speak English and can't do a good job, because you do. It's just that keep it at a level that the general public will grab a hold of and go, this makes sense and it's positive. Okay?
And I think the easiest thing everybody in the general public will understand is this is a home mortgage, school district's home mortgage, and we're refinancing it. That's the bottom line. We have two options to look at. One that gets it earlier, but you save less money, and then one that's out 2 years, 1 year? 1 year. Out 1 year, we wouldn't see immediate effect on our taxes, but we would see more effect over the length of the deal. So it's just refinancing our home mortgage.
To take advantage of a lower rate.
To take advantage of lower rates.
So Michael, could you help us take a look at why we might want to lean toward one way or the other?
Absolutely. So unlike your home mortgage, as Mike's pointing out, a bond issue is not all callable. You have a non-callable portion. So your call date is
You can't
February
prepay it
1st,
early.
2019. Those bonds you can't pay you can't pay off early. So the options are in front of you is the typical way that you've looked at refinancing is option one. That you would take the maturities from 2020 to 26 that are a little over 4% interest rate, or 4.125%, 4.25%, and you would exchange that for today's interest rates, which are between a 0.94 and a 2.18 right now. So you're making a play of 2 to 3% better on interest rates, and by doing the play on interest rates, you're hoping to save $1,619,000. Now, when the taxpayers see the savings is with taxes payable 18. So the difference in this is how this mechanism is put together. Is the new money issue is set aside until February 1st of 2019, and then the old debt's called in. On the second issue, that escrow starts picking up this coming taxable payable year, so 17. So you're putting all the old debt, all that money set aside in escrow account and refinancing. But you start that a year early. However, there's about 60 grand worth of extra costs in that transactions, and it's not as an efficient transaction, so you're only seeing $1,560,000 projected savings for that method. However, you've just gone through a tax increase and adjustments, and those adjustments will be flowing through again this year. We'll see how they come out with all the legislative changes. This would kick those adjustments. This would help decrease any adjustments that are coming through this year, or step it up an earlier, 1 year early. However, you lose gross savings to the taxpayers. So the difference is just how we're putting that terminology of that refinancing the home mortgage. And by the way, Mike and I, as number geeks, I want to tell you, happy Pi Day today to you. Rod got that one.
You did. You must say use it every
You owe
year,
me.
huh?
You owe me.
You must use it every year.
I've never used it. But yeah, he didn't net me around. In other words, you're playing with when you want to see the savings kick in, but it's about $175,000 versus $200,000 a year for the amount of savings that are coming in that are equivalent to the 9 years of savings are needed, or 10 years of savings.
All right, let's take questions. Mary?
How much will the average taxpayer save?
When you break it down down to the average taxpayer, this is gonna be dollars.
Well, we sent to our.
So 6 might be anywhere, and I haven't done the calculation for a while, but I think, Mike, you and I were talking about it at the end of December, early January. And I think we did somewhere from, depending on how we, for every $100,000 with a levy, we know what that adds to your levy. And this saves 200,000, we double that, so I believe that was somewhere around $4 or $5 on a $200,000 house. But in aggregate, it saves across the whole.
Because we sat through a truth and taxation hearing, that a lot of people came, and they mentioned about what we did in July or August, refinancing, and we were off about percentage because of the refinancing. So I want to make sure that the taxpayer gets a savings.
This would be a savings on the mortgage portion of the overall levy. It doesn't affect general fund, it doesn't affect community service, it's just the debt service portion, so.
So it becomes a question of,
What else
do we want the
happens?
biggest amount of savings, or do we want it to start the soonest, sacrificing a little bit of that? Because $60,000, it's a big number, but it's comparatively to the bigger number. The question is, do we want to start the savings this year versus next?
For every 100,000, it's $4 on a 200. For every 100,000, your levy changes each. Right now, it's $4 on a 200,000.
Per year?
Per year. So double that, it's $8.03 for the impact if we save 200,000 off the levy and pay 2019 or 18, excuse me. Fiscal year 19, pay 18.
Other questions? And for clarity, the recommendation you bring forward is option 1.
Save the additional 60,000.
We don't have to adopt that, but that's the recommendation that's been brought forward. Other question?
What is your, so you think there's more benefit to saving the additional dollars than it is to have it kick in earlier, in your professional expert opinion?
It's a more efficient transaction, and that is typically what is done. However, we wanted to complicate your board meeting and say that there's other options.
Well, I like having options, and I like having 2 options that result in taxpayer savings.
Additional questions? Do we know enough to have a motion? I'm looking for a motion to adopt option 1 or option 2, I guess. Option 1 being having been recommended.
I look at it as trying to think, getting money back on the account. Is the only reason I look for option 2. As bad as we got beat up. Trying to do it, I mean, I know big picture, obviously we want more money for longevity, but when we're talking that big of amount, is 60,000 really?
So 60,000 would be about a $2.50 savings on a $200 home. Over the life of this.
Yeah, as opposed to getting their money now.
As opposed to that average house saving $8.03 next year.
I'll show you 250, but I don't want to get into math of it. Option 2 is complicated by this abatement, and I'm not sure where that was put in. That doesn't have to be in there.
Doesn't have to be in there. It's
Does
just,
that change the math at all? If it's stripped out?
It doesn't work with the first one. You would lose the 60,000 saving in the first option with the advanced crossroads.
Your abatement borrowing would be higher.
Fine, what I'm saying is if you strip out, if I understand, if we strip that out, the last 2 bullets, we don't even worry about that. It's still the same, projected savings,
Yep.
the same, it's just a year earlier.
Yep.
Okay, so we're really facing, do you want to take a larger amount of savings three,
Is that our
four.
third one?
Yep.
4 times maybe?
I think it was fourth.
Yeah, you don't have to look it up, but it's the number of
We've
times.
traditionally maximize the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that would.
12,
fall
13,
in
14
our-
were the three issues that we refinanced, the 4s, the 5s, and both 6s. Now, this is the 2008 for the fourth one.
Do you know, just off the top of your head, Mike, not looking at that, Michael, aggregate savings we're talking about? Weren't we north of 11 million or something
Yes.
like that? So this is adding, so we're pushing $13+ million we've saved probably through this process.
Correct, since 04.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off, Scott, your point.
I forgot. I don't struggle with this one. I hear what you're saying, Tony. I mean, ideally, there's a certain amount of me that would just love nothing more than to say, let's fire this up right now and start handing back. But longer term, which, and we're in this for the long game, not the short game, we're all gonna get a bigger bang for our buck. And the fact that we're gonna sort of reset our taxes a little bit in 18, there's gonna be an offset that some may attribute to this and it may not be, have anything to do with this. So wouldn't be worst thing in the world if we had an offset here next year and then the year after we got another one. That makes me feel good too, to know that we've got a little progression happening. So with that, I would advance a motion to accept option 1.
Okay, that's good. We have a second. Let's take additional discussion on 1 and/or issues with 2. It's kind of I really firmly believe, my opinion, it's a win either way.
Yeah.
Consistently, we have taken the largest amount available for the taxpayer. That would be consistent with that. It's nice that you presented an option. It's kind of complicated matters in the sense that, well, maybe we're delaying it by a year, but I'm supportive of option 1.
I'm like you, supportive of both. I guess my preference would be just for what Tony said, that not instant, but more immediate tax relief. I would prefer option 2, but they're both big wins. So it's a style, and yes, there's hard dollars, but I like the impact sooner to the taxpayer.
And I would say, had we not been planning on a little right sizing here this next January, I would agree with you. Then I'd say option 2, but if not for what's about to happen on its own.
Other comments? We have a motion on the table. No other comments, we're gonna move to a vote. All those in favor of option 1, refinancing of approximately $1.6 million savings for taxpayers with a kick in 2 years, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, Mike will.
And Sarah was able to get the budget?
Yes, we're gonna turn back to that. We've got this.
When we can. Yeah, I apologize for that. I didn't notice that it wasn't in the board book, but.
I just sent you an email. It had to be a board book thing. It's posted on page 2 isn't there?
Well, that's my responsibility, and I apologize. We're supposed to have these things ready for you, and I apologize to you for that. The one thing I would mention, and it doesn't make it good, these are not new numbers for you. You've seen these before, but if you're gonna take action on it, it'd be important to have it in front of you. So I feel comfortable that we could, as a board, move forward, but yet with short notice on these numbers, hoping we could get a motion and approved. And by the way, in 2 weeks, or in a month, or if, we can keep adjusting as we go, which is probably a best practice for us anyway.
So Mike, I think you verbally talked about in the blue at the bottom, the general fund line and how the difference is positive $22,000. Do you want to just verbally restate that now that we have it in front of us?
Right, for the state defined general fund, and that's what we've been looking at on our 5-year projection, and they're out longer.
Right.
That number has stayed about the same, $22,290 positive increase on the fund balance.
Okay.
So it'll stay in that, 7.65 range this year if we hit our numbers.
Said differently, we're coming in a little under budget.
Under the original budget.
Under the original
Yes.
budget, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then what you'll also notice, we have OPEB trust on there. That number, we hadn't done the OPEB trust in the first year. We didn't talk about it at the budget adoption, but as part of our general fund expenditures, we increased the OPEB transfer from 330 to 360, so I'll start reflecting the OPEB trust if we take money out. Now that's money that we set aside to pay for other post-employment benefits, retiree health insurance, and any other things that we have. And so I just want to point that out, that we put that in there as a.
Which is another account, pardon me, it's not accounting speak, but it's kind of taking the money out of one pocket and putting it in the other. Is that fair?
Right.
Yeah, it's still an account that we have for us, for our use, that we started many years ago, back when Mary and I were on the board, created that fund, it's grown over time, we continue to add to it, pay our obligations down the road. So it's still funds for our
Available
use,
for
we're
this.
just earmarking it for this.
Right.
Exactly.
So I just want to point.
Mary?
I want to find out how much is left in the OPEB trust.
I want to say it's about $5 million right now.
Yeah, it's grown, it's nicely grown.
We were able to, we've moved from just some CD type investments to a little bit more of a market balance. Our basket has changed from just straight bonds and things like that, to bonds and market equities. So we've seen some increase.
All right, other questions? I'm looking for a motion to adopt, I think is what we're looking for, Mike, right? A motion to adopt the revisions to the budget as explained on the front side of the sheet you're looking at, leading to the financial numbers you're looking on the back side.
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mary. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Mike. All right, where are we at, guys?
Mike, I think you're part of the bid next to, or you, or is
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Who's doing that?
Rupert?
No, that's fine.
We opened roof bids for the junior high west. We are looking at replacing the roof on the gymnasium and the auditorium. And the base bid came in at approximately $445,000. And there was an alternate for the panels around the edge of the roof. It was another $95,000. We had originally budgeted, or we had talked, original estimate was about $500,000, so the total project would be $540,000. And I would have.
Yeah, the wall panels are kind of an important aspect of finishing the waterproofing or the damp-proofing for the entire envelope of the building. So I would really suggest looking and accepting the ultimate number one as a complete roofing package to satisfy the water leaks that they're having there.
Mike, for the benefit of the board and anyone watching, these funds come from where?
These will be out of the reserved for deferred maintenance that we've had.
Okay.
So that's where this would come from.
Questions?
We're doing the whole cafeteria?
Actually, gymnasium. So it's the two high roofs at the at junior high west. It's the over the gymnasium on the hard floor, and then the auditorium.
Auditorium.
Auditorium. Yeah.
Well, it was just done. It was, I mean.
Yep. The lower around from the auditorium, between the auditorium and gymnasium, there's a lower roof, and that was done to the second story. Then on the second story of the classrooms, a fourth of it was done because it cut into fourths. And then on the west side, we did like over the shops, the old, between the shops, so between the gymnasium and the pool on the shop side.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to accept the bid as presented to us. Base bid $445,000 recommended for $95,000 for a total of $540 for the roof at West Junior High. Thank you, Angela. Second, Mary. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. All right, we're rocking and rolling now. Brian, you get to come back up. We probably could have done you 2 times in a row. Sorry about that.
All right.
So this is the handbook and the protection plan. First reading, right. We're not gonna take formal action tonight. This is, you talk us through it, accept the first reading.
So very similar to the rollout, we got a lot of feedback from last round, last year's deployment of iPads and MacBooks to the kids, and took that feedback back and revised a lot of our paperwork. Not really heavy revisions in terms of content. You're not gonna see a whole lot of redlining or changing in here. A lot of it was more condensing and working on presentation. Had a lot of help from secretaries at East and West, particularly Laura Duff and Mary Karst, as far as putting this into a nice package that would be easier for the parents, because everyone was getting a ton of paperwork. The offices were getting a ton of paperwork after the fact to kind of catalog and put in play, and we wanted to reduce that. So this essentially repackages the information. You'll see a few little changes, a little bit of cleanup and that kind of thing. Probably the most significant addition to the handbook portion is there's a section toward the end of that that talks about use of online educational applications, like a couple short paragraphs about it. And I point that out just because I had questions earlier in the year from the board regarding that topic in particular, as far as student data, student privacy, that kind of thing, and just being accountable for it, and having an awareness for the parents and the public about what services we use with the kids. So we have some provision in there to help people be aware of what sites and services we use. So we're covered with that as far as what letting people know. And again, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. I don't know if there's anything hugely different, other than that in terms of content that we want to get into. As far as the other comment I would make is I left the insurance rates in here the same as last year, which was $25 annually for the iPads and $75 for the MacBooks. That is not to say that it might not be adjusted. I do not anticipate at this time that they would go up. We're doing fine. We collected enough. We had a good rate of collection, about 80%, a little over that maybe, in terms of families that contributed. And we still have a decent amount left. So as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll evaluate where that stands, but I feel good about it. So yeah, I'll stop talking. You guys can say as we. Yeah.
The handbook looks great.
Good.
The revisions were, it did clean it up and clarified some things, that was great.
Good.
The protection plan, I had a parent come to me and say, next year I'll have a 10th grader, a 9th grader, and a 6th grader, which ends up being a big check.
Right.
Right before. Are there any options available other than opting out for families with multiple devices? And her other question was, if we didn't use the insurance last year, is it?
Insurance is annually
That's what I explained.
done. That's an interesting discussion that as far as would we do any sort of family plan or anything like that. I can't say we've worked that out, but I'm more than happy to look into what that would take or how that would look. In terms of working out that kind of rate,
Is it an affordability issue?
It is for them.
Because I think that one of the things that would be good for us to communicate then is, like any activity, if normal circumstance would, if a family had 3 and they were like struggling and hurting to make that, of course we'd work it out. We'd work out something. We also have groups like the St. Anthony Alumni, or, okay, I'm going back in time. Shakopee Alumni Association, that one of their prime purposes is kind of an angel fund. And I would think they would like nothing better than to learn, you know, there's 25 families that are on free and reduced that can't afford the insurance. Could we help offset through the gala that they're going to have coming up? Could we pay some funds there? And then frankly, as you're aware, we get private donors all the time who, if we have an issue, we'll call up and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, we have a family of 3 that can't pay the insurance. We get checks like that. I mean, our community's really giving. So those would be ways that we could, I guess, without soliciting that we want to necessarily give this away, it's an avenue for those that have demonstrated need to do it in a private way and still get those kinds of things. And you know, I think Brian, you said once too, if it's if you do work it out and it's still $5 or $10 each or whatever that is, paying something puts an extra emphasis behind the plan. You know, a person tends to see that as an investment then. And so I would say for you to go back to that parent who would not, who it would cause a hardship, go to the principal and explain their situation, and we'll work it out.
Okay.
One way or the other.
And absolutely, I can send that message. But I know of families in my neighborhood that have 5 kids, and eventually we're going to be one-to-one K through
Sure.
12. So if there is a way to look into a family plan, or it might be worth exploring.
It's, I mean, it's certainly something we can explore as far as looking at how that could work out.
And it may not work out, but it just.
But.
Well, certainly, you know, one of the things Brian has said is they're gonna adjust that up or down, you know, and, yeah. We're gonna be able to adjust that package up and down. The idea would be is that we have to keep a certain amount of money in there so that if we have the highs and the lows, you know.
We're still covered by
So-
advice.
True.
Yeah.
To the point, building administration know that they have some leeway to make accommodations to families that express their needs, so.
Additional comments? Do we have a motion to accept our reading?
First, we've done, you know, it's kind of
Yeah,
weird,
yeah,
we've
we
done
talked
it.
about it. For fun.
Sometimes we don't, it's what you wanna do with
What
it,
would you
so.
like to do?
No,
Vice-
we've had our reading, you've got it, we're gonna take formal action next time, so come back with more questions if you have. Thank you, Brian. It's good to be the king.
I'll hail the president.
Name that movie.
Yeah, just for the road program.
All right, oh, yes. That'd be Scott. So Scott and I, if you recall what do I wanna call it? Not the matrix, but the,
Strategic directions.
well, the broader map of.
Participatory.
The participatory planning
Yes, yes,
map,
I'm
right, all the different committees. One of the committees that's new, that is starting to gear up, is the Partnering and Branding Committee. Scott and I happen to be the representatives on that committee. We had our first meeting tonight, just to kind of kick things off. And I think Scott's gonna share a few thoughts about that.
Yeah, not a ton to report. Tonight was really more exploring the opportunities that this new facility provides us. We talked a little bit about the history of Shakopee, and has there been a lot of naming of facilities and or specialty rooms, signature spaces, and there really hasn't been much of a history of that. So we've got some great opportunity to provide Shakopee residents as well as business owners a chance to probably get their name or names onto different pieces in the new high school. Again, nothing laid out, just tire kicking on the opportunities, and I saw a preliminary roster of the kinds of spaces that we're looking at, and they're all shapes and sizes. So I guess for anybody sitting at home watching, there'll be information will probably be coming out in the weeks and months to come. And if you've got a hankering to get your name on something, whether it's a business or an individual or a family even, please don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Thompson or Krista McNally or Matt Thomas here at the communications department, and we can have conversations start. But for right now, it's just tire kicking and exploration.
What are you considering naming? What?
It's all to be determined still. We're gonna have to look at the policy implications of this and whether it's under existing policy or new policy. But to answer your question in detail, it runs the gamut from the academies to facilities to spaces within facilities. There's a whole menu, you could say, of things that we will consider. We're gonna, as the committee goes forward with people in the administration, board, and community, we're gonna get community input as well. We're gonna say, what's the interest in doing so? What's the appropriateness in doing so? What's the price tag for doing so? So it's not gonna be a wholesale sale. It's gonna be, what do we wanna do here in Shakopee that seems to make sense? But it's an opportunity consistent with other school districts that do this sort of thing and other institutions that allow participation, honestly, of our community members and local businesses that want to work with us, and for that, they get a benefit and we get a benefit. Other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Scott. I don't think we have any additional new business. So in the spirit of the way we have handled other updates on the high school, we're actually going to adjourn the business session, go to a learning session, just that allows that discussion to be free and flowing and kind of more of a dialogue with Scott. Are you going to do this? Queen? Scott? Okay. So with that, I would, yes? I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn the business meeting.
Move.
Second?
Second.
And we will come back. Do we need to take a break before we actually break? Okay. All right, then we'll take a quick 5 and come back and commence with the learning session on the high school update. All those in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we're adjourned. 5 minutes.